It's time for that podcast where imposter syndrome meets genuine expertise. You're listening to FounderQuest.
Josh, it has been way too long since we recorded our last episode. Time
It's
flies.
been what, like a month?
Yeah, about a month. Time flies. But
Yeah.
every time I looked up to think about recording, I was like, oh, I want to get this other thing done for Insights.
Just too busy. Yeah. So at some point, you got to just stop talking and start shipping.
Right. Well, John kind of
Yeah.
called me out. John Newmaker kind of called me out on Mastodon the other day because I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about writing this blog post. And he's all like, stop thinking and start writing. I'm like, yeah.
I saw that. That's a pretty good quote. I
It is pretty
might have
good.
to clip that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciated the encouraging thoughts there. It's just, for me, it's, I'm busy and it takes, I don't know, maybe it takes a lot of time for me to do a really good blog post. I got to pull things together, do a lot of research. And because my blog posts tend to be like code heavy and example heavy, I got to make sure all that stuff is right. You know, I don't want to put something out there that's got a typo or worse, that does something that doesn't do what I say it does. So anyway, I don't know. I'm just making excuses, but yeah, I need to get on that blog post.
It's good advice. Yeah. I'm a big fan of like just staged editing. Like the first draft is just a first draft and it can be terrible. It can be completely rewritten, most likely in the second draft. But it can help to get the thoughts out on paper. And
Yeah.
I would also like to have a better, develop a better writing habit so that you don't, it would be nice if you didn't have to sit down and spend like 3 days writing the perfect blog post. If you had a habit of working on it a little bit, like, block out an hour in the mornings to write and gradually polish it up over time until it's ready to publish and just have that as a constant process that's ongoing.
That sounds like a good idea. When you're talking, I thought, well, I guess I could drop in snippets of stuff that I'm working on while I'm working on it to help accumulate that post over time rather than trying to grab it all at once, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little bit like the Fieldstone method of collecting things as you read, consume content or whatever, and then use that to influence your writing or
Yeah.
construct your writing.
Well, I guess what I should really do is ask John what he does because he has excellent posts all the time. And it seems like he can just knock them out in 5 minutes. Like, he does this tweet stream and it's like, oh, well, I just made that a blog post. And it's this fantastically good blog post. So I don't know. He's got
Yeah.
some secret that I should get.
We should get him on here for a writing episode. That is something that we're working on internalizing, is a writing habit for like as a team, building that muscle. So
Yeah.
I could probably use his advice.
I love the Evil Martians blog. And they always have great stuff. And one of the things, I don't remember when this was or who it was probably a year or two ago now, but they were a new employee on the team. And part of their blog post was like, it's a thing here at Evil Martians where we all write blog posts. So here's my first one. And then they dove into whatever they're talking about. And I thought, that's really cool, being at a place that encourages that kind of activity. So, we talked this week about doing that amongst us. And I think that's going to be a good thing. I think I know that whenever I write about whatever I just did, then it kind of gels it more. And I'm also really bad at documentation. So that helps document things too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's all sorts of benefits. And I think even more so as it becomes easier to write the just generic blog posts. You could have ChatGPT write a tutorial, like a generic tutorial. I've been thinking a lot about what's the future of like content marketing when it's so easy to just generate a bunch of content. And I think that's the thing that like AI is never going to be able to replicate, is like the things you learn as a team, doing things together and solving like hard engineering problems that are unique to specific domains. It can make up a story, I'm sure, about a hypothetical engineering problem, but it can't actually like, do the work and communicate what you learned to your specific audience. So
Right.
I think that's the path forward for us. And all along, I think that just produces better, more interesting content. I think that's why everyone loves the Evil Martians blog, and it's why people have loved our blog in the past as well.
Well, I really enjoyed your blog posts recently about Ahoy and using Insights to track that Ahoy data. And I suspect that we'll see a number of Insights related articles on our blog coming up pretty soon as we come up with more use cases for Insights, because it's just too much fun to use. So why wouldn't we write about it?
That's my plan. Is I've been having fun just exploring just like Ruby things lately, just to keep up on latest developments, new projects. And I think a fun exercise is to like, as a part of that, figure out how can we like integrate Insights into this from like a monitoring standpoint, just because there's so many different, like it can monitor basically any kind of event, and there's so many different events out there and different libraries and things that could be instrumented. So it's a good excuse to go like tinker with new projects that you just want to play with. And then you can record a screencast or write a blog post about what you learned, approach it as I'm learning, like a learning in public sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like we have a whole month's worth of things to talk about. I guess we should say Insights has reached general availability.
Yoo-hoo!
We did it. We shipped it.
Yeah, we finally shipped it. And it was somewhat anticlimactic because we used the feature flag to just, we just enabled it for everybody.
It's been there all along.
It's been there for a long time. But on the flip side, despite the less climatic version of the deploy, it was pretty neat because it wasn't a really stressful deploy. It wasn't, there wasn't a whole lot of drama. It's just, it's still working. And we found a few more bugs just because more people were using it and there are more corner cases and things we forgot about. But there wasn't like this huge, like stress-filled 6-hour-long deploy window kind of thing. It was just like, yep, it's out there. Great, which is pretty exciting, actually.
Yeah. And we haven't done like a big like marketing push yet. Like we haven't done a huge company announcement or whatever. But our customers, as they use Honey Badger daily, they're going to start to see Insights in the UI and they can go check it out. And then the rest of the launch is coming in March.
Right. So we've made some progress towards our goal of 100 customers spending $100 a month. We haven't reached our goal yet, but we do have customers who are sending data into Insights and they are passing the thresholds at which they would be charged. So we're on the right track. Now that we actually have a sales page on the website that says what it is and it's not labeled as preview anymore, now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable about going to people and saying, hey, check out this thing. And, you can actually see the pricing. And I think that'll make my job of selling it a little easier.
Yeah, I think that the flywheel has started spinning, and as long as people keep using it, the money will start to come in.
Yeah, I was thinking about, we had our marketing meeting yesterday and I was looking at the new revenue for the month of February. And I don't know where I saw this recently. It was on Twitter or somewhere, but talking about like every additional dollar you bring in revenue, sticks around, right? It's going to stick around for a while, whatever, based on whatever your churn rate is. And ours is very low. So every dollar that we add is just going to be compounding, right? Month over month. So I am just totally excited about having this expansion revenue opportunity in Insights.
Yeah, me too. And I'm really excited for the future. Just, I don't know, we've been building a lot and I think that's what I've been lacking in recent years. It's just the building.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun. Who knew business crises could make us excited about work and software again?
Never let a good crisis go to waste, right?
So should we talk? We did a lot in February.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can get through every single thing, but we could talk a little bit about like kind of tie up loose ends on some of the projects we discussed on past episodes, and then maybe talk about what we've done leading up to the launch of Insights, and then we can talk about what's next for March and beyond.
Yeah.
If that works.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. Well, the first thing I'm really interested in is I want to know the results of your science experiments. We had talked about launching, or we switched our search backend for error search from Elasticsearch to ClickHouse. And you were pretty optimistic on the like the speed and like cost improvements running like ClickHouse as a search index. So I'm curious, what were the results of that? And you were using the science gem, which lets us do benchmarks and test the results based on different sample groups of people using the same feature with with the different search backends. How'd that go?
So we took a two-prong approach. I'll get back to the science thing in a sec. So the other thing we did is we put it on a feature flag, right? So some people have been using ClickHouse as their search longer than the rest of our customers. We did fully deploy it last week or 2 weeks ago. Can't remember now. Again, just enabling that feature flag for everybody. So on the one hand, there was no impact that we noticed that was bad, like no bad search results coming back from humans actually using it. So that was good. All right. So on the science side, the cool thing about the science gem is that not only does it tell you what the performance differences are between what you're using now, the control, and what you want to use, the candidate, but it also gives you an opportunity to compare the results, right? And you can you might need to massage those results because maybe the new thing returns results in a slightly different format than the old results. And so a couple of rounds of that, I had to go in. And so when I started using Science, I just compared them like the raw results. And it was obvious very quickly that 100% mismatch. I was like, uh-oh. And then I went in, oh, I see. We're using string keys here versus symbol keys there or whatever. But that was really helpful. Like there was this one spot that I totally would have missed, which was the timestamps coming back from ClickHouse were coming back as a time class, because the library, the active record or whatever is doing that transform for you. But the stuff coming back from Elasticsearch was just strings, right? And so we did have one place in our UI, which was depending on that being a string, and it broke with the ClickHouse result. So, finding little things like that behind a feature flag was fantastic, but also seeing it in the Science results when it compared the two results was very good. All right. So step one was cool. I had to get all the results to match, and found a couple little interesting behavioral differences between Elasticsearch and ClickHouse. And so that took a few rounds of work. And never really actually got it to 100% in all the cases. So we were testing like 5 paths through our code, I think. And, I guess as a bit of explanation, like why 5 paths, we have a lot of different places that use the search index in our UI. So there's like the notices timeline, there's notices list, there's the actual search that you type in. So there's 4 or 5 places like that were going to the search index. And so I wanted to test all of those paths. And there were some that were like, if you've ever compared two accounting systems, you often notice that like the numbers just don't match, right? Oh, like the time buckets are different, or just when the data arrives can be different. So it puts it in a different bucket, so there's that. So you can't always get 100% match, but I got it pretty close. Like in some cases we had 100% for every execution. And in some others it was less than 100%, but I eyeballed those. I reviewed them manually, and they look fine.
Well, and these are things that no one's going to notice because no one is comparing the results side by side but you.
Thankfully, yeah. But on the performance side, where it's really exciting. So if you take out the outliers, so that the gem that we use the lab tech gem that we use to actually evaluate the Science experience, it gives you this cool little chart that shows you what the returns were on how fast it was, or if you have bad case, how slower it was. And in our case, if you leave out the outliers, we were getting a 30 times performance improvement, right? Wow. And in our case, that means that responses were coming back from the search index either anywhere from 100 milliseconds faster to a full second faster. And when you're talking about UI responsiveness, like slicing off a second response time is a huge deal. So it was pretty exciting.
That is amazing. Nice work.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, I haven't noticed a difference since it's been deployed. So
we had one customer who sent in a support request about how the search wasn't behaving like it was before. And it was a minor issue. So the way we're doing now you basically have to provide the asterisk if you want to do a substring search. Whereas before, Elasticsearch just assumed that you wanted to do that sort of thing. So aside from that little nit, it's been great.
Very cool. And I guess we should just real quick, address, because everyone who knows anything about ClickHouse and using it in this way is going to ask, what about updates? So I know that we've encountered some rough edges around updating data in ClickHouse. What's our approach there?
Yeah, we ran into this problem because we allow you to merge errors together, right? And so now if you're searching across what was 2 errors and now it's 1 error, what happens to all that old search data? And so we actually had to build like a layer on top of the search that can translate. We keep track of those moves, and then we just massage the data as it's coming back out. And it's like, oh, it moved? Okay, well, we'll just replace that data with this data. So we don't actually update the old data in the search index. We just mask it, and it works pretty well.
Yeah. So in this case, the answer is don't do updates.
Don't do updates.
And we found a way around it.
Yeah, that's really the answer. And in later versions of ClickHouse, the delete story is better. So now you can actually delete data in a way that won't kill your cluster. But still, updates, not so good.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Nice. That's one thing down. And also that's some cost savings for us being able to turn off the Elasticsearch cluster eventually. So that'll be nice. Cool. So on the product side, I think we talked about some of the things we were planning to do on the last episode in order to launch Insights. So we can maybe run through some of these pretty quick. We created a billing UI. So we have the Stripe integration finally. And that turned out actually to be not as hard as I imagined. Roel worked on it, and we ended up basically just billing it as an add-on. We just have an additional set of plans that you can choose in the UI in addition to your current Honey Badger plan. And that's basically it. And I think we even have a couple customers that have started to
Yep.
choose some plans in there. So
Yep.
that's a good sign.
Yeah, we also did a default on that. So if someone doesn't sign up for any plan, because we have a bunch of customers who exist today who don't have this plan because it's brand new. We have a default allotment right now. It's set to 50 megabytes a day. We went back and forth on that. We're like, do we give everyone this free plan, or do we just, and we decided not to do that and just give everyone the free allotment if they don't have a plan.
Yeah, I was doing the math on that last night because someone on Twitter had mentioned that they were looking for a paper trail alternative now that paper trail is being absorbed by, I think, SolarWinds observability platform and is going away. And this person on Twitter said that they were spending like $7 a month for 1.5 gigs of ingest per month. And I did the math, and about 50 megabytes a day is about that with 7-day retention. But the good news is that we are giving that away for free. So you can use the Honey Badger developer tier.
That may not be a complete coincidence.
Right? I see your evil plan.
I did spend a lot of time thinking about pricing and comparing it to alternatives.
Yeah. I really like how the pricing turned out. So yeah, on the pricing side, as a part of the billing, we figured out like what we were going to charge. And I think if you're not sending a lot of volume, it's a little more. But once you reach the mid-range of the plans that we chose, it's, what is it, roughly around $1, like $1 per gig.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
We're not counting per month. It's ingest per day, which is different from some of the other tools out there.
Yeah, we did decide to go with a daily quota rather than a monthly quota. There aren't many logging systems that go that way. There are a couple. But the reason we did that is, well, one, it's kind of an experiment. We want to see how that goes. But two, also from an operational standpoint, like if we have to handle 100 gigs of data, let's say, from someone in a day, that's very different than handling 100 gigs of data from someone over a month, right? We have to have a much different scaling kind of thing for that. And so we wanted to account for that. Like we wanted to have that kind of cost structure reflected in our pricing. And then also, I think one of the ongoing issues that we have with Honey Badger is we have people who hit their monthly quota limit, at some point during the month, maybe it's week 3 or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, we had this big burst of traffic and that used up all of our quota. Can we get a waiver for this month? And we almost always do that because we totally understand, right? That happens. But if we can avoid even having to have that interaction because it's fine, like it'll go over and the next day it'll be fine, then that saves time and frustration for everybody. So that's kind of those motivations. And I'm really curious to see how it goes. I hope people like it and I hope it works out well.
Yeah. So the way it works is that if you go over your daily quota, you're not going to get cut off immediately.
Right.
But because it's being tracked daily, we can say if you've exceeded your quota for like a certain percentage of the days out of the month, like you should probably upgrade to the next plan. And that's the point where we can recommend that to people or even do it automatically or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. So we have that tracking now. And that's part of what we've been building over the past couple of weeks as well. Make sure we have that in place. And we have it posting to our Slack channel. So we can just keep an eye on it for now. Right now, we're not really enforcing any quotas. And so we'll see if we see the same project or the same account show up in Slack every day. Oh, they went past it today and today and today. Then we'll reach out and say, okay, you should upgrade. But I think when it comes to logging, you don't really want to cut people off. Again, like with Honey Badger, like we have on our website, like when you're having a bad day, the last thing you want is for your tool to stop reporting your data for you. So yeah, we're trying to be like super flexible on this and do what makes sense and what's easier for people.
Yeah, that makes sense. So we did build the throttling and the ability to enforce quotas. And initially you were thinking we could probably launch without that. And we changed our minds. So why did we change our minds?
We changed our minds because one of our test customers decided to send us a whole bunch of data and caused us some operational issues. And so we're like, I guess we cannot launch without having some way to control this. We got to be able to turn people off.
Yeah. So we had a couple opportunities in February to realize that we need to have some controls around the scaling story. I think we had probably more incidents than usual, would you say, in February?
Yeah, I think so. Because we built this whole new pipeline. And I guess before we say that, obviously this did not impact our production error pipeline because that's completely separate. That's solid. But this is brand new. This is a brand new pipeline. We're using new code. Like we're doing a lot of work in Go for the first time. So there was some growing pains and some learning experiences and some times when our Kafka cluster was begging for mercy because we were way, way, way behind the offset, the backlog was super high. But I think those are really good learning experiences, and we're in a much better place we were 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is totally expected. This is
Yeah.
like this is what should be happening, and this is what we should be doing. No one said this is going to be easy, and dealing with this amount of data, and especially as we have more to deal with, we're going to reach the limits of the system and have to do performance tuning and optimizations and all that. Luckily for us, we're smart software developers who can solve these problems and like challenges.
For sure. And that's the benefit of having the preview period too, right? Is not everyone is using it. It's a small set of people using it. And then B, like if things go badly, you can be like, oh, sorry, things got broken, and it's not going to cost someone their job, right? Because they know it's experimental. It's gonna change. It's gonna have some problems.
Yeah, someone was talking about that recently. It might have been Jason Cohen, but about how like large companies who launch products like this, like they're dealing with scale from day one. So they have to do things much differently than like a small company who can like gradually scale up like a product. Because if you're already at scale, like you can't just throw out some scrappy, we'll fix it in production type thing. But that's a benefit for smaller companies that can move faster and iterate a little quicker.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, one thing I would say that though is like, it has felt like we've gotten a little bit bigger because we couldn't just launch this without any kind of scaling protection.
We're a little bit in between.
Yeah, we're kind of in between. We're not at the point where we just throw it out there, but we're not at the point where it has to take a year to launch something either. But it's definitely took longer because we knew we had to build in some capacity for scale from the beginning.
Yeah, we might actually be suffering from that problem a little bit, come to think of it. But also, I mean, that's why we chose to like do the longer rollout in alpha with a limited set of people, because it gave us that ability to gradually scale and solve some of those like performance issues.
Mm-hmm. We had some time also in February to update the Honey Badger gem. So I think Jan did that for us and wrapped up that work in January. And we really were able to test it out over this past month with some of our own personal projects. And from day one of general availability, we have the Ruby gem supporting, you can now call honeybadger.event, and you can send any data into insights that you want. And then Pangradios a few months ago, I think he beat us to the punch. He added that to the JavaScript library. So you can do that from console or from your client side or node code as well. You can use the log event method in our JS library to send events. So eventually we will add this to Python and Laravel and so on. But we made a decision that we didn't want to hold up the launch of Insights by requiring us to have all the client libraries supported at day zero. And we decided, well, we'll focus on some of the more, basically go in order of usage, Ruby, JavaScript, then it'll probably be Laravel next, and then Django after that, because it takes time, right, to write some code. You don't want to put something out there that's going to be embedded in someone's application that's going to mess things up when they try to send a bunch of logs, right? So instead, what we've told people on our instructions is rely on Vector, it's a very lightweight, very rock solid agent that can basically look at your log files and then send them to us, to our API. So worst case scenario, if you're running on an app that's not supported yet by our client libraries, you can run Vector and it can grab your log files and send them over to us. So it's been cool to see the different customers we've had using the different platforms. We've had someone using the gem. We've had someone using the JavaScript library. We've had a bunch of people using the Vector. We even had a person who's, what about CloudWatch? I want to send CloudWatch logs. And so I had a little side quest where I went and got dirty and figured out how to get that going, which was a little bit of an adventure. So it's fun seeing all these different, and someone using Fluent, which is something I never touched before. So it's just kind of fun to see all that happening.
Yeah, we have a lot of this in our future. I hope you know that. Like we've got hotels coming up and all the different platforms and integrations. But yeah, I think with the client libraries in particular, we're starting with like the lightest touch possible by just basically adding a method to each client library, which is Honeybadger event, and it sends an event to Honeybadger, and of course it does batches and does some performance things and underneath to make it perform well. But the next thing I want to do, like I'm already wanting like full Rails instrumentation for this, because we can basically send all the active support events and then we can start doing some APM style performance monitoring things. And I'm really excited for that. So I think we're going to be diving into instrumentation pretty soon. And also maybe OTel or OpenTelemetry as part of that. That's one thing people are using that automatically instruments a lot of different frameworks already. But I don't know about you. I'd like to have some like just simple straightforward instrumentation built into our gem that makes it an easy, 3-minute install, and you don't have to think about it.
Well, because you asked, I happen to have an answer for that. I released a new gem. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. First time I've released a new gem in a very long time. It might be the first one since Faker, but I can't remember. But it was the Yabeda Honey Badger Insights gem. So basically, if you're familiar with the Yabeda gem, or suite of gems, I guess I should say, it's an instrumentation set of gems for Rails. And you throw it in there, and it's got instrumentation for Sidekick, for Puma, for all sorts of things. And then it has a bunch of reporters. So you can send them to, a lot of people use Prometheus. That's the official blessed one from Evil Martians. But there's also like a CloudWatch one. And so I added an exporter for Insights. And so if you're already using Yabeda, I guess that's how you pronounce it. I don't even know. Then you can just add the Yabeda Honey Badger Insights gem. I have to link in the show notes. And then you can just have all the instrumentation automatically showing up in Insights. It's great. I play with, I started a new Rails app for the first time probably in, I don't know how many years, and set it up. And it was like literally drop it in, just add water and go kind of thing. It was fantastic.
That is so cool. Okay, I'm gonna have to go try that, add it to one of my hobby Rails apps and play around with that. I'm excited now. That's really cool.
And there's a suite of stuff for all the languages when it comes to OTel. So we definitely want to lean on what's already out there and support all the popular formats rather than trying to build a whole big instrumentation thing ourselves.
I do love that trend, like the trend of everything just interoperability and open instrumentation. Like it just solves, I don't know, just back when we were initially building Honey Badger client libraries, and I remember commiserating with like the New Relic client team when I would run into them at conferences about we all had the same problems and we were all building the same instrumentation, and it was a pain. And it's nice that there's standardized instrumentation coming out that kind of everyone can plug into.
Totally.
Cool. So back to Insights, we got our landing page and pricing pages updated on the marketing side and got that all shipped. And I think all that's left is to like actually start telling customers about it, emailing people. We got to write a blog post, do some of the actual marketing things that companies have to do. I don't know. I just want to be building, but we should probably do some marketing here to tell people about this.
Some people might say, well, you should have had that stuff ready for launch day, right? You should have had that email ready to go and that blog post ready to go. We actually decided intentionally not to do that. We wanted to have a little bit of a slower drip out there because we wanted, again, to ramp up kind of slowly and have customers discover it and make it a more organic process. So what we did do is we did put a UI in a little notification that shows, because there's a new UI element for a new tab that you can see when you're in your projects list. And so we put a little blue dot there. Oh, this thing is new. And we put a little message in the sidebar that's dismissible that says, hey, you should check out this new thing. And then when you go into that new thing, there's a little message there that says what it is. We decided to skip that whole like tour thing where you got to go through 7 steps to actually get to the use of the project. So we wanted people to dive in as soon as possible. But we wanted to do that kind of easy onboarding first and get people like starting to use Insights before we did this big push. We didn't have hundreds of thousands of people showing up on day one. So I guess the launch stuff is a little lagged, but I'm liking how it went. The thing that really got me was like on last Friday when like the dust had settled from the launch. And I was like, okay, now I'm ready to really promote this thing. Now we got to get that blog post, that email out there. Because before then I was nervous. I was like, is it going to work? Is it going to fall over? But then once I started seeing customers starting to just get into it and use it, I was like, yeah, this is totally ready. Let's do this.
Yeah. With a SaaS company, you don't really need to do huge product launches. Like you can, and that's like a common thing to do, but like there's all kinds of things that we can do over time. Like we're going to be running ads, and we're going to be building up more of a content marketing pipeline, and we're going to be building like drip email campaigns and all those sorts of things. Basically like the marketing flywheel type projects.
So I got a question for you. We've been working on this project for a long time, and we had a pretty long trial or preview period. So looking back, is there anything that you would do differently on how we built this thing?
I think we built it for a really long time, like you said, and I wish we would have shipped it sooner. I don't know if we could have. I mean, it has been a lot of work, and we've been doing a lot of other things in the meantime. But I think like probably like we spent a lot of time last year working on just like more general, I don't know. We did a lot of things, but I think we could have pushed a little harder, to be honest, to get it actually shipped. And there's a lot of reasons we didn't. And we were still like a lot of this, like strategy, like we were still learning. Like we were still learning last year, like what this thing is, because initially we were planning to launch this as a separate product. And actually, now that I say that, I think that was probably the mistake, was deciding to do this as a separate product instead of just building it into Honey Badger from day one.
Yeah.
I think we would have gotten to market a lot quicker if we had done the latter.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking the same thing, like having that pivot. Like, we spent several months going down that path of the separate product. And I think I still want to get back to that someday, because I think there are things that we can do with this code base and what we have that are outside of Honey Badger could be interesting. But yeah, having gone down that path and now change course and bring it into Honey Badger, I think about how extractions really are so powerful, right? When you build something and then you see a pattern and you extract that into something new, like I did with Rails kits back in the day, after having built 3 different building systems and Rails apps and did the same thing over and over again, extracting that out into a product, and Rails itself being an extraction from Basecamp. I think it would have been smoother, faster. It might have been uglier and rougher, because extractions, you have to clean things up, right? That's how it's part of it, because you learn as you go. But yeah, if we could rewind, that's one thing I think I would do differently. But maybe we'll get around to that second product that uses this back end, and that'll be awesome too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential there for that type of product. But the problem for us is that, like, in terms of revenue, like we have existing customers, an existing revenue, an existing product, an existing market, and we know how to reach that market. So why not bring it to what we have first and then go after the new or whatever larger market at some point in the future once we've learned what it can do for our existing market. Just like having this in Honey Badger, like the more we've built on top of it, it's been a light bulb moment that like it enables so much more that we can do to make the rest of the product better and add new features and do deeper like cross integrations between different product features like uptime monitoring and error tracking and observability. They all tie together, and the more we can integrate them, like it'll make adoption better, it makes the product better. And so
having been playing with Insights for the past few weeks, I'm so excited about the things that it could open up in the product over the next year, things that we can build on, that we have this incredible foundation now. That, I guess, as a counterpoint to what we just said about doing it inside of Honey Badger first, I think one of the benefits of doing it outside of Honey Badger first was that, like, Kevin's goal was really to make it very agnostic, right? Not be focused on one use case. And I think he did an amazing job. He was completely successful at that, because now we have this foundation where we can do all kinds of cool things. It unlocks a lot of potential that would have been much more difficult to do without. So maybe it was worth it in the end.
It's a toss-up. I think mainly just, I like the way that we built it. I think that from day one, we should have been thinking of our Honey Badger customers and audience, and not like a new greenfield, like the mass observability market. That's good. But on the other hand, like you said, like thinking about monitoring and like what are the current trends, like let's say Honey Badger pre-Insights was like V1, and we've always talked about wanting to do Honey Badger V2.
Of course.
I feel like we're kind of getting there now by bringing this new modern observability approach into the product and then gradually building the rest of the product around it. Yeah, I feel like we're bursting with ideas right now about how we can now revamp the rest of the product. So maybe it's a little harder for us to like actually do the, just rebuild Honey Badger from the ground up like Basecamp might have done with and do the V2. But this was kind of a backwards way to get some of those benefits, get some of those fresh ideas into the app that are drastically different from like the existing paradigm.
Yeah. And without disrupting what's already awesome about it, because people can still use Honey Badger like they used it 2 days ago and not change a thing. They could completely ignore Insights, but we can, behind the scenes, be doing all kind of cool stuff that I think will bring even the old experience, new polish and new features that will be based on the Insights foundation.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm excited.
I'm excited too. And we tried, I guess we started in 2022 on the shape up process where we were doing the 6-week cycles. And we got away from that as we got really deep into the building on Insights, because it was just such a huge project. We couldn't find a good way that felt like a good fit for doing this, breaking it up into those kind of cycles. But now I think we're at a point where we can get back to those cycles. I'm excited about that. And the only problem is
same.
like picking the next cycle. There's so many options of things we could do. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, but that's a good problem to have. I guess we'll have to strike the right balance between what the product needs and what we want to do, because I want to have fun while we're doing this, but I also want to build the things that we need.
Yeah.
Cool. So what's next? I guess I think like we're going to be switching into marketing mode here for a little while. We want to actually do that public launch now. Write the blog posts, send the emails, start some advertising, keep producing content, I think we have a lot of team engineering blog posts that we want to work on that should be really good. I'm really excited for some of the content that we can put out there and share about some of the things we've learned while building all of this and launching it.
I'm really interested in doing some outreach to existing customers. I think we have a lot of customers who could use this and who probably aren't paying attention to what we're doing on a daily basis because they're paying attention to their jobs and their own stuff. So I think we have a lot of educational institutions and we have some large enterprises who are using Honey Badger that I think we could get in there and say, hey, you love us for exceptions. What are you doing for structured logging? And check us out. I've tried to do some outreach in the past. A few years ago, tried to do that and it didn't work out so well. And so I'm gearing myself up like, okay, I got the energy. I'm excited about the product and so I'm ready to try it again. So I'm hopeful that I don't have to come back in 6 months and say, oh, that was a failure, But at the worst, if I get some people on the phone and we're talking about Honey Badger, the product, and they tell me what just talking to customers is a great thing, right? So that's something that I've neglected a lot in the past. And so I'm looking forward to getting more in the groove on that.
Yeah, it's always good to be talking to customers. So it definitely can't hurt. But so we've got about a little less than a month until March 31st. So now's the time. The product is out there. The people can pay us for it. So now we just got to get the customers in the door. And I think, like you said, that has already begun because we're starting to see usage. And I think what usage is where the expansion revenue comes from. So I'm excited to get our first dollar in the door for this.
Yeah. Fun times.
Cool. Well, this has been FounderQuest. You can find us on FounderQuestPodcast.com. And if you can give us a review in the podcast app of your preference, that would be great. We really appreciate those. If you can write something, but definitely give us like 5 stars or whatever. And we'll catch you again next time.
See ya.
FounderQuest is a weekly podcast by the founders of Honey Badger. Zero instrumentation, 360-degree coverage of errors, outages, and service degradations for your web apps. If you have a web app, you need it. Available at honeybadger.io. Want more from the founders? Go to FounderQuestPodcast.com. That's one word, where you can access our huge back catalog of episodes. FounderQuest is available on iTunes, Spotify, and other purveyors of fine podcasts. We'll see you next week.